Hello, everybody. Stephen Mead here with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. And there's not a title for the video this week because a couple reasons. Number one, I think that the market we're in is actually a very normal feeling market. I don't have a witty, fun title for you. And the second is just a couple little things I wanted to go over for our first time entry level buyers. This is our entry level buyer market update for Southern California. And just as a reminder for people, that is mainly Orange and Los Angeles counties. However, I'm actually recording this in San Diego at the moment, where it is raining on this Friday afternoon. Kind of an unusual bit of weather that says, for once, fall is actually here. I don't think the market is quite there. Something that I've been thinking about a lot is kind of the notion of what we spend our time thinking about when we're making real estate and, frankly, other financial decisions. I think we spend a lot of time thinking about the wrong things. And thinking about the wrong things is a luxury that I think you have when you have tons of money. Since this is for our entry level home buyer market update, that is most likely not you. If you have plenty of money, you are probably not watching this market update at all. And one of the things that I think we spend a lot of time thinking about is things that are related to sort of this emotional aspect, right? Like, I think a lot of people are looking for the top or the bottom of a market at any given point in time. If the market's down, they're looking for the bottom. If the market's up, they're looking for the top. And, I'm sure some people will guess those correctly. But, I've been around this long enough. I distinctly remember telling everybody I knew in the 2012, 2011 to 2013 timeframe, you should really buy a house. You should really buy a house. It didn't, I looked at the fundamentals. That was my reason. It wasn't because I thought we had hit a bottom. It was because I thought that just looking at the numbers, it was cheaper to buy than it was to rent. Now, that did turn out to be a bottom. I didn't know it at the time, but a lot of people, the reaction was funny. Most people said, look at how much housing went down next year. I don't want to buy anything. And I think that's really, when I think about doing these videos, that's really the crux of it, is making decisions for the right reasons and using the right set of data and trying to understand where sort of our emotional biases come into play. I've talked about a book, I think a couple times. I mentioned in our other podcast. It's called The Psychology of Money, and it's by a gentleman, Morgan something or other. It's on Amazon. It's kind of a top star. So if you hit Psychology of Money, I'm sure you'll find a little link in the YouTube video. But I think that book is really an excellent academic look at why people make the kind of financial decisions they make, and sort of some of these gotcha moments, right, that we tend to make. One of those gotcha moments that I think is really pertinent right now is, no matter what is going on, we are trying so hard to identify what event in the past it is similar to. So let me give you an example. This week, the Fed said that they are no longer going to be buying treasury bonds, buying up bonds at some point in the fall. I think November, they're going to stop. So, the gut reaction is, oh my God, interest rates are going to go through the roof. I'm not so sure that that's what's going to happen when they stop doing that. There's a lot of strong foreign demand at the moment for U.S. Treasury bonds. So there's a lot of different things that could come out of that. And, my point with this is a very, very clear one, I think, is that just because things have happened a certain way and you think something fits the pattern, it doesn't. And this is the reason why, when you're spending time making decisions, researching, you really need to spend your time making decisions based on the factors that, frankly, you have a lot better data on and that you have a lot better control over. That's the reason why we don't focus on wild, super long-term things on here. We try to look at fundamental data and maybe some indicators of what's happening right now, so we understand what is it like to play in the field at the moment if you're buying real estate, especially if you're an entry-level buyer. So without any further delay, let's jump into the stats. I'll kind of take you through these. So the first thing to talk about is our closed prices and what has happened. And just as a reminder, this is looking in the rearview mirror 4 to 6 weeks, right? We saw prices crest and go down, but I think if you look at the trend, right? What do you see? Prices that accelerate a lot in the spring, and now they are just gently going up. But look at how much variance there is in this data. That should tell you that markets are never as smooth as we think they are. They are subject to one comp ruining everything in a neighborhood, or one comp hitting an amazing price point. That can have these sort of temporary effects that bounce things around. Now, the market kind of finds its equilibrium, and I think in the end, prices end up where they should be. But that means sometimes we do have these week-to-week variances. You'll look down here. I am a little mystified at the condo market sinking 20 grand. That feels like an outlier, but here we are. I expect to see that number jump up next week. Now, if we look here and we combine this with where interest rates are, and believe it or not, interest rates have not moved a huge amount. They've inched upward ever so slightly. Obviously, watch that space. One of the things that I've talked about in the past is it's not so much where interest rates go, but how long it takes for those interest rates to get there. And a slow increase of interest rates over time, I don't think will actually have a huge effect on our market. One of the calculations I want to do is I want to see how fast can interest rates go up where inflation exactly counteracts that. And what I mean by that is, at what point does just normal inflation of housing prices allow for payments to go up on housing, so that the housing prices will stay the same? So I'm kind of curious about that, but I might run that stat for you guys next week. We looked at our minimum household income. Again, for these entry-level homes, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, detached property, right around 100,000 is that minimum income with no other debts, if you are buying with 5% down. I think we did this 5% down, including mortgage, insurance, taxes, etc. And for our condo scenario, which is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, I picked that in particular. I don't think I ever explained why, but because I think that's the most versatile condo configuration. It allows you to rent out a room and bathroom if you're so inclined. We're right around 70,000. We are actually less in that condo category than you would have spent, than you've needed to earn in 2018. So if you are a person who's on the sideline, maybe you're in a single income household, I actually think now is a really good time for someone in that position. Let's look at our absorption rate, right? This is often talked about as a bit of a canary in the coal mine on the real estate market, right? This is the most instantaneous data that we have, really. It's a 14-day date, so we tried to smooth it a little bit. We're at 81, or we're right about 84% for entry-level single-family home and 85% for entry-level condo. These are really solid numbers. This is a very stable market. And honestly, this is a very normal market. And what is normal anymore? I don't know. But looking towards the fall, this is exactly the kind of behavior we expect to see. September and October are typically fairly strong months in Southern California as far as the housing market goes. And we see these numbers are right in line. Things aren't falling off a cliff, really. We see a couple reductions in our condo here on that absorption rate, but gosh, anywhere in the 80s is still a very strong market for sellers. So total inventory, this one is kind of a bit fascinating to me, only because you look at this graph in history and you see condos and single family homes tend to kind of, move somewhat in line. And boy, we got through the spring here and things just these markets just completely diverged, right? So I'm kind of curious about this because we hit these kind of peaks in inventory. We started to drop, and then we've had 2 weeks in a row of some increases here on our entry-level single-family home, and kind of some stagnation or slow drops here in our condo inventory. Like I said, I'm still looking for the reason why condo prices haven't gone up, why they haven't moved nearly as much as those single-family home prices, especially relative back to 2018. Now, if you look here in kind of our other little immediate measure of sort of market competitiveness, remember, this is our 14 days still active. We look at all the listings that came on the market in the last 14 days in LA and Orange counties that meet these criteria, our entry-level single-family home and our entry-level condo. And then we see how many are still around after 14 days. just as a reminder, we're past that Labor Day period with this 14-day look back, and where are we? Lower numbers are more competitive, and believe it or not, for our condo figures, we're actually, in a fairly competitive spot, and we're not totally at a high point really either. We're near it for our single family, but not completely out in crazy town. One of the things that I mentioned a couple times before is that when a market is not completely nuts crazy, let me go screen share here. When it's not completely nuts crazy, you'll notice that this market begins to be stratified. And what I mean by stratified is the most desirable houses behave a lot differently than the least desirable houses. In a market when there are 20 people for every listing, yeah, even the crappy listings are going to get multiple offers, right? It's going to be very competitive. But in the stratified market, you might find those top listings still get 20 offers, and the bottom listings get nothing. And we're starting to see that divergence happen too in this marketplace. So if you're a buyer out there, if you don't like the level of competition, one of the things you can do, and you have an option, is go to the homes that aren't being loved. Maybe they're overpriced and they're just not even getting showings right at this point. That's something that you have an option to do in this market that you did not have the option to do in previous markets. Let me go back in here. If we look at our inventory, you'll see that our entry-level single-family home inventory retreated a little bit, and we are very close to where we were in September and October of last year, with just under 4 weeks of inventory. Our condo market inventory went up a little bit. Again, I'm a little puzzled by that because that market still feels competitive. A little over 5 weeks. That is still well below where we were in last year, though, and I think it's worth noting that. Finally, we have, let's see, actually, that is our last slide this week. Another thing that I've been kind of thinking about, especially with my first-time home buyers, something that's been on my mind again is about that notion of making the choices that are going to be right for you and having flexibility. I think flexibility is the thing that gives you that freeboard. It's that cushion, that margin for error. And I think when you're making these kind of big financial decisions, even though we call these homes entry level or affordable, these are big sums of money, right? For a house, 10% of $600,000 is still $60,000, right? Like, this is a lot of money. I think building in as much flexibility and margin for error in your strategy is really important. And I hope that's something, I know I've said it before, but I want to say it again, because I think whenever that future begins to look uncertain, that's really what you have to fall back on, is having that option, that sort of heads you win, tails you win mentality. And I think that's really important to kind of work on that type of a strategy to make your finances a lot more resilient. That way you could participate in all the upsides of homeownership and not really bear the brunt of any of the downsides in terms of market or interest rate or whatever the world brings. I think the last few years have taught us that expect the unexpected. Anyhow, thanks for watching. It's Friday. Like I said, I'm down here in San Diego. It's raining. I do have a nice view of my hotel room of the rain. But we will see you next week. I also do want to mention something else. We have a really awesome listing for first-time home buyers. We're calling it affordable because I think right now it is the least expensive single-family home for sale in Tustin. But this is just an awesome mid-century modern property. I'm going to leave the link in the description below so everybody can check that out if you want to. And we will see you later on this week. Oh, open houses for that property this weekend. So, definitely, we'd love to see you. I'll be there tomorrow, and my assistant Cassandra will be there on Sunday. So we'll definitely put that link in the description below. We'll see you guys real soon.